Hello, and welcome to another episode of Self-Improvement for Women. I am your host, Hope Long, and today I have a wonderful expert with us. Her name is Daniela Wolfe. She is the CEO and owner of Bestie Life. She has done social work for over 15 years. She is an expert in all things self-care, and she herself is also a mother, so she knows about that balancing act that we tend to take on every day. Daniela, I'm so excited that you're here today.
Thanks so much, Hope. I'm so excited to get to chance to talk again. I know we had so much in common, and I love being able to share about this stuff because I think we can never reinforce too much how important self-care is in our day-to-day lives.
Absolutely. And when we talked previously, we talked about the word self-care and like how it kind of has this now there's like a dismissive stigma to it, right? Like, oh,
Yes.
self-care. Yeah, I get it. Take the bubble bath, do this, do that. But it goes a lot deeper than that, right?
Absolutely. I
What
think
is your definition?
so. For the way I present and help women with self-care is that it's not just those big moments, the bubble baths, the spa days, the getaway weekends, which I love and are so important, but it's these micro moments throughout your day that you integrate 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And it's not just, a one-time event, but it's everything from the way you sleep, the way you eat, the way you move, the way you dress, the way you decorate your home, the way you connect with others. All those things are part of your self-care. The mindset that you bring, the intention that you bring to some of these actions, they might sound so, just completely mundane, like, I grab my coffee every day. But when you take an extra moment and give it that extra layer of, I'm going to smell it, I'm going to savor it, I'm going to put a little bit extra into that moment with my coffee, you start that recharge process. And by doing that throughout your day, instead of like doing an hour a week and thinking it's going to last all 5 days, is how you start to integrate self-care in a way that's functional, in a way that really kind of provides those benefits that everybody talks about and that are so necessary in being able to then manage all those other parts of your day when you're trying to work and manage your kids and maintain your relationships with your friends and your partners and all those other expectations. By taking care of yourself consistently throughout your day helps you do all of that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's almost like the backbone, right? The
Mm-hmm.
backbone to, it could be the backbone to your business, your personal life, whatever it may be. But you got to take care of you so that you can take care of other people the way that you want to, or show up the way that you want to, or succeed in the way that you want to, right?
Absolutely, because people think self-care, oh, it's selfish, it's just about you, but the fact that your family gets the benefit from it, your job, if you work for somebody else, or even if you're a business owner yourself, you're going to show up more creative, more motivated, more productive because you've already taken care of yourself first.
Yes. Yes. Um, so, and we talked about this too. Like we said, it's not just the bubble baths, right? And I wrote a whole blog article on this because I really got sick of hearing self-care. And I got sick of these blog posts where it's like 5 things to practice self-care. And it's all very surface level stuff that you can do just every day. It's for me, self-care is about igniting my passions, right? Or getting excited about my day, or setting my intentions for the day. And like, while a bubble bath is super nice and luxurious and makes you feel good and makes you smell good, those are all great things. But for me, practicing self-care means I'm getting out of my comfort zone. I'm doing something that I'm passionate about. I'm taking something away from it that's going to fire up the rest of my day, the rest of my week, right?
And sometimes it's also those underlying systems that you might already have in place to help create a simplicity so that you have the energy to then direct to those other, newer things too.
Absolutely. And I find that when we don't practice self-care, what happens? We get kind of
Burned
stuck.
out.
We
You
get
just get
burned
burnt
out.
out.
Yes.
And that's a horrible place to be, and it's beyond just feeling stressed and overwhelmed. Burnt out has become, an epidemic, unfortunately, in this country. And it affects, unfortunately, women more than men, because we take on more, whether, we earn more or not. We decide unintentionally and unconsciously, that we still need to take care of all these other things, as opposed to keeping ourselves at the top of that priority list.
Yeah. And burnout looks like not doing the things that you love, right? You're so burnt out, you're so tired that you just really don't care about that passion project that you had. You're going to put that on the back burner. It looks like sleeping too much, sleeping too little, eating too much, eating too little. And it looks like a lot of times socially pulling away from everybody. And that's when you need people the most, right? Is when you're feeling like that.
Right.
So you talk a lot about finding that balance, and you've got some excellent tips and things, especially we have the upcoming holiday season, right? And this is the time we like start really freaking out. We're trying to gather those presents. We're trying to, plan the event, plan the meals, clean the house before all the guests get there, do all these things, communicate with everyone. And it's really chaotic and it can be really overwhelming. So during this time, how can we take time for ourselves and feel good about it?
And again, when I talk about balance, it's not about everything being equal, because you do still have your normal day-to-day life, and we're adding maybe some extra gatherings, some extra tasks, things to do and things like that. And so the first part is just even rethinking what balance looks like. It's, again, not everything being equal, but it's about your ability to adapt, your ability to pivot, your ability to have some resilience, and definitely set some boundaries. Boundaries is a big part of balance, and not saying no in a mean way, not cutting people off, not putting up walls, but letting the people around you and deciding for yourself where that line is going to be, so that you are not, taking on more than you're comfortable with, saying yes just to people please and say yes. And so by carving out those boundaries and that time for yourself is going to be that first step of making sure that self-care happens every day. Having that adaptability and being able to pivot, having options, because it's going to look every day a little bit different depending on what life's throwing at you, what your kids have going on, what's happening, and so being very conscious of the fact that, your self-care has to be flexible. It can't just be, well, this is the thing I have to do, and if I can't get to this, I don't have self-care today. And that's why you look at all these other areas of your life. Sometimes, being able to fit in 2 to 3 minutes just a couple times throughout your day can add up to 20 minutes, if done intentionally and with some very specific activities. So definitely that balance part is the first part of your self-care, recognizing and deciding ahead of time what your boundaries are. I always use the example, like, if you want to go shopping at a store, you want to know what time they're open. You don't want to just keep showing up and they're closed. And so it's the same thing with your boundaries, letting people know this is when I'm available for this. This is when I'm not available, so that it actually creates comfort and ease for other people to have those boundaries, because then they know when is a good time for you as well. So it actually gives other people freedom to know what your boundaries are. But that's definitely one part, is, to recognize that balance. The next is, to have some specific things that you like to do, kind of figuring out yourself a little bit ahead of time, whether it's taking a walk outside, certain songs, yoga, meditation. Sometimes it's getting together with friends and laughing. Self-care doesn't have to be this alone, isolating activity. Making time for fun and play and things that you enjoy, again, is very, re-energizing and so important to staying in that place. And sometimes, it might just be 10 minutes. You're driving to work and you call up a girlfriend and you have a quick chat, but it's those 10 minutes of intentional, like, I'm making the time for this, I'm finding the space and doing, again, like I said, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there. Maybe you set a timer 2 to 3 times a day to take some breathing breaks. And again, breathing decreases your cortisol and stress levels, lowers your blood pressure. So what sounds like so super simple, like I breathe all day, but that intentional 2 to 3 minutes of deep breathing physiologically is going to bring you so much more
Yeah.
in, those other ways that you'll sleep better when you do those things. So they're very simple 2 to 3 minute things that you can definitely fit in throughout your day.
And I will say with the laughing part and like the just in taking time to genuinely enjoy yourself or genuinely be present in a moment, that is so important. And I know it sounds silly, but I like literally schedule time to go play with my 5-year-old. And so
Mm-hmm.
that I have a timer in my day where I get to be 5 years old. And that's it. I turn the phone off, I silence it, I keep it in the house, we go outside or we play a game or something. But it's an intentional time where I'm just releasing all this adulty stuff and
Mm-hmm.
he's getting what he needs from me, which is just for me to be there with him, to be in that moment. So it's very, I always feel so much better after I've spent that hour just playing, just being a kid. And I always come back and I focus and I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna put my adult face back on, and I sit down, I have better focus, I'm more creative,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm building that bond with my child. So that always makes me feel warm and fuzzy and good. And
Yeah.
so I know it sounds silly, but those are the things, especially if you're in business by yourself, or you're starting a business and you're a single mom, any of those things, being intentional about your time and laughing and taking time to be a kid again will do you wonders, right?
Absolutely. And even like you said, you put your phone away. So now you're not multitasking anymore. You're almost doing a mindfulness practice by playing with your son. You've now put your focus there. You're breathing when you're laughing. You're, paying attention to his laughter. You're responding to his responses. Like we don't even realize that part of it. And so I think that's sometimes why we don't prioritize it, because we don't realize how important not only it is for us, but for them. We're modeling, this is how you take care of yourself. This is how you take a break, not just sitting and scrolling, but connecting with someone and giving them 100% of your attention is a great way to, model for our kids and our families. This is part of what self-care looks like. It's not leave me alone for 20 minutes. I'm going to do something by myself all the time. It
Right.
can, but not all the time necessarily.
Right.
And then just even like physically making sure you're taking care of yourself. The holidays are an easy time to, whether we're, maybe drinking less water than we should, having more alcohol than we should, maybe higher sugar levels or different foods than we might normally eat in our day-to-day routine. And so being just super aware physically of how we're taking care of ourselves during the holidays, not that we shouldn't enjoy things. Absolutely. Moderation is key, but being conscious of, okay, I'm going to make sure my water intake is staying where it needs to be, because hydration is huge, again, physiologically from so many ways, making sure we're moving enough, and we might be like, well, I don't have time to get to the gym. Fine, you're running errands, park in that faraway spot, parking lot. You're still going to go to the same place, but you've added an extra bunch of steps to your day to help keep that movement going and things like that. So there are some simple shifts to kind of still, again, fit in the things you need physically while still taking care of all these things that you're trying to do.
I never realized it until recently. But at holidays, I used to be the kid that would show up and eat a ton and still feel really great, right? And I had no problem. I wasn't like putting on the pounds or anything like that. I had a high metabolism. But now in my 30s, I realize how bad I feel when I am stuffing myself. And so when I go to these big dinners and stuff, one of my things I do, I take a little bit of each thing, just a little bit. And then that way I get all my taste buds filled. I feel like I had a whole meal, because I'm full.
Yeah.
But instead of, really pounding down those potatoes and stuff, which I would love to do because I love butter and I love mashed potatoes. But I know it makes me feel so bad now. Like the next day, even the following day, my body is like recovering from that. So being intentional about, what you're eating during this time, huge, especially the water thing. I love that, because what we don't do, we get so busy. Like we are so, for me, I'm very guilty of this. If I'm getting ready to go run an errand and I'm thirsty, I grab a pop out of the fridge, right? And then I just go, and then I'm constantly wanting more pop for the rest of the day. If I grab a water, totally different story. Grabbing one water makes me want a second water. you know, and so it just sets that in motion for me instead of just the sugary, like keep going energy, caffeine. I'm like actually doing my body a favor. And in the long term, I have more energy because that water is so good for me.
Absolutely. And that last part that you're talking about, without even realizing, that self-reflection, that kind of recognizing this is what works for me, this is what's not working for me. And in general, you know, our feelings around the holidays, we have these expectations sometimes, or the holidays can bring up a lot of stuff, whether it's families, whether it's grief, whether it's losses, all sorts of things can come up during the holidays. And taking time to self-reflect and at least acknowledge, not necessarily you have to unpack and stay in that place, but acknowledge, okay, this is what I'm not happy with. This is what I'm disappointed or sad about. And being able to recognize it allows it actually to have the space to move on as opposed to consume you. Because if you keep ignoring some of those things, they'll catch up with you. You know, it's not going away just because you pretend it's not there. And so whether it's, you know, the activities you're doing, the way you're eating and drinking or sleeping, you know, all those types of things, acknowledge, gosh, I did not get a great night's sleep tonight, but I can plan differently now because I acknowledged it rather than just trying to keep going and going. You know, that self-reflection part is such a big part of our self-care that I think we only want to focus on what's good, but I think acknowledging what hasn't worked or what we need to improve on is important, to just allowing ourselves to be human and have that grace, because it's not about perfection. It's about being the messy selves that we are and kind of, you know, being able to, whether it's laugh at it, live with it, and keep going, though, based on that acceptance and that vulnerability of just being who we are.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're finding yourself, you're gearing up for the holidays, you already know you're going to be stressed out. Holidays happen, right? It happens. It's over. How can we decompress from all of that excitement as we gear into a more calm month of January and February, those things? Because I know it's almost exhausting. You know, I know sometimes you drop back in the bed and you're like, oh my God, what a day. And that's kind of how like Thanksgiving and Christmas and all these holidays that are one right after another, it feels like that after every single holiday. So what are some ways that we can decompress from that and in a healthy way, right?
Yeah, because I think we see New Year's comes and all of a sudden it's like everyone comes on with this list of resolutions, and I'm going to get a gym membership, and I'm going to go to the gym every day, and I'm going to do this, and I'm throwing out everything in my pantry, and I'm going to start eating this way. And I think we go too big too soon, you know? And so I think that first step of decompression is to go super small. Pick one thing. Again, back to whether it's the water, breathing. Sometimes I combine it. You know, I tell my clients that I work with, you know, when you set a timer 2 to 3 times a day, you take a couple of deep breaths, you finish with a big glass of water, and you go forward. And so just that one little thing done consistently, though, throughout your day, every day, might seem super small. You're like, but it's only 2 to 3 minutes and I'm only doing it 3 or 4 times a day. But those little moments add up, and that's where you start making the bigger shifts and changes, because you're not trying to overhaul your whole life. You know, it's hard to build these bigger systems in and then still go to work, take care of the kids. They've got this, they've got that. You know, you can't do that. It's going to feel like then self-defeating and like you're setting yourself up for failure. So I would think start super small, you know,
This is so
even
true.
if it's putting on 5 minutes of music at the end of your day, or picking a book that you're going to read 3 pages of before you fall asleep, even if it's in the middle of the 3rd page. You know, start as small as possible is where you're going to find the biggest success.
And it's funny, I was just having a conversation about this earlier this morning on a coffee chat. I was talking to another person in the self-care field, and the January 1st thing came up. I'm like, you know, people have trouble being consistent with really big, audacious goals. Like it is so, because it feels like it's so far away. Like if I set the goal and I set the bar, like I'm going to get fit this year, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week. That feels like the success, or like the satisfaction, the accomplishment. It feels like it's really far away. But what really we need to shift our mindset to is the accomplishment is in that 5 minutes where, like, one, we decided we were going to start getting healthier, right? That's an accomplishment. You made a decision, you recognize something, you did it, you're on your way. And then the next accomplishment is, yes, I had a bottle of water this morning right after I drank my coffee. Like that's an accomplishment.
That's all. Absolutely.
It's not always going to be this giant dramatic change. But when you're setting yourself up for those small accomplishments, it makes room for the big accomplishments to come through that door, right? Because then, you know, 8 months down the road, you're like, wow, I just feel amazing. Like every single day, every week, this week, I've done 20 minutes of yoga once a week, and I just feel like a yoga master. Like you feel good.
Yeah. You know, and I like the way you talked about pairing it, because that's another thing I talk about as well. You know, habit stacking, I think it's by James Clear, you know, like maybe you wanted to start meditating, but you're like, I don't even know when I have a quiet moment to meditate. You know, maybe it's when you're brushing your teeth. And that's, you know, you set the 5 minutes on the Insight Timer or whatever, if you're using an app. And that's when you just do your meditation, and you kind of pair it with something you're already doing, because that'll be the trigger to remind you. Because so many times we set these goals, but they're in isolation, they're by themselves. We've never done them before. And so of course, out of sight, out of mind, we're going to forget. But you're going to pick up your toothbrush at least a couple of times a day. And that's your moment, whether you even just close your eyes, smell the mint of the toothpaste, or, you know, put on you know, a diffuser in your bathroom, whatever's going to help create that next step that you're looking for, tie it to something you already do, and it'll be so much easier to maintain that new habit.
I do this with my intention setting. Like every day, I like to take a shower in the morning because it makes me feel like I'm getting ready for my day. When I'm in that shower, I set my intentions for the day. I talk to myself, right? And I tell myself, all right, today your big 3 goals, 3 things that you're going to get done today. And I set the intention, and I get out of the shower, I start getting ready, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I set my intentions. I'm going to go start on number 1. It motivates me in a way because I already told myself what was going to happen that day, right?
Yeah.
So
I follow this Pilates instruction. She even showed at the beginning of this year, like different ways to start integrating Pilates in your morning routine. Like she had you doing squats while you were brushing your teeth. She had you doing like, you know, toe lifts or things like that, you know, like again, just tying it into things you're already doing. In the shower, I find that's when I'm my most creative. I wish there was like sticky, you know, waterproof sticky notes. Yes. Someone was like, oh, that's the best. So I'm yelling things to Siri, take a note.
That's $1 million idea right there.
I know.
That's funny you say that, because my sister actually, she decided a couple of years ago that she wanted to get healthier. She had put on some weight and she was feeling, you know, not well. And so she said every time she has to go to the bathroom to pee, she's going to do 10 squats in the bathroom. Because like, nobody will even know. It's just her. But every time she has to go pee, she's going to do 10 squats. And I'm not kidding you. In 6 months, I was like, you're looking a lot better. And she was like, thank you. Guess what I've been doing? She's like, it took me 6 months. I'm like, wow. And it's just, you're right. Like the it's not necessarily multitasking, because you're doing something on autopilot. It's autopilot for us to brush our teeth. Right. It's autopilot to go to the bathroom, right? It's autopilot to take a shower, but pairing it with that intentional habit, right? That's going to make a big change.
Yeah.
This has been so good. So decompressing after those holidays, and we come down and we come back into this space of, okay, what changes am I going to make? You know, how can I start small? What kind of advice do you have for our women entrepreneurs in the audience who get up and they immediately start working, like first thing in the morning? They open their eyes, and this is, I know new entrepreneurs are more guilty of this, because as a new entrepreneur, you feel like you have to work on your business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get it off the ground. And I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs watching. So for those women that get up and the first thing they do is look at their phones, what advice do you have?
Well, one, and I know this might not be popular, but please don't. If you can, get a normal old-fashioned 1980s style alarm clock, whether it has the radio or a buzzer, and get your phone out of your room if at all possible. I think that's something that is just, I have found personally helps me create that space I need to not check it right away, to not look at something, because it is, you know, even if you're just shutting off your alarm, you can see if there's notifications, see if there's a message, and our curiosity can easily get the best of us. And you think, oh, it's just going to be a minute or things like that. And I think mentally, like you said, in the shower, you create that space for your intentions, for your thoughts. You're not going to have it if that's the first thing you see. So, intentionally, like I said, using something else to wake you up in the morning would be important, because then you physically have to walk somewhere to get your phone if that is the first thing you want. And that might be that time that you take some deep breaths, start that little mini 2-minute meditation to get to where your phone is. Take that time. Maybe you take an extra lap around your house before you go get the phone. That's how you start create space. Space is going to be important to helping you separate from constantly feeling like you're on. And to go back to that boundaries part of balance, you're not going to have balance if you don't put that boundary in place of, I don't check my email until 8 o'clock, or I don't do this until this. And it's not that you're being, a bad CEO, boss, entrepreneur. It's about, if anything, you are being fantastic at making very clear where your time is going, so that you actually have a say and some control over that, versus the device dictating what's happening next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also really important, like, as as you are growing your business, and maybe you're a mom too, and maybe you're a wife, and maybe you take care of your parents, or maybe you've got a lot going on other than just building a business, right? Because the odds are you do, right?
Mhm.
I
We've all
think
got laundry. You've at least got laundry somewhere.
yes, we've all got laundry. So one of the things that I talk to my clients about a lot is you're yes, you're running a business. And yeah, I mean, businesses go about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you never know when you're going to get that message, or when you're going to get that client, or what's going to happen next in the business. Sometimes it's unpredictable. But start your work day just like you would a 9 to 5.
Mhm.
If you're going to work 9 to 5 for somebody else, work 9 to 5 for yourself, right?
Mhm.
And allow yourself to have the night off, because you still have a life outside of your business. And that's going to make you be able to show up with even more enthusiasm, new ideas, those things, at 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, whatever it may be. I
Mhm.
don't like to start work until 8:30. That is like
Yep.
when I sit down, and I'll sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to do some work now.
Yep.
But before that, I'm making my coffee, I'm taking my shower, I make my son breakfast, we eat, taking the time to do those things.
That's why you started a business, I'm sure, was to
Yes.
have the time to do that. So don't kind of kick yourself in the foot by, negating the whole reason you started. And that's why, like I'd mentioned, sometimes I use my technology though to stay not working, as weird as it sounds. Like if I get a great idea, I'm not going to go start working on it, but I'll have Siri take a note so I don't lose it. Hey, Siri, take a note. This would be a great idea for a blog or something that I want to write later, so that I can come back to it when I'm actually in that work mode.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Daniela, thank you so much. We are nearing the top of the interview, but I do want to ask you one thing. I'd like to ask some of my guests that come on. If you were to pass away tomorrow, what would be one thing that you want to leave with the world? A piece of advice, an experience that you've had, something like that.
Oh my goodness. I think just gratitude, to appreciate every moment you have with the people you love, to realize, unfortunately, we don't know what comes next, when things are going to change for us, and to not live in that place of regret, but to really always show the people you love and care about just how important they are to you, because that's ultimately what's going to matter at the end of the day. Now, how much money you make, how many shoes you own, or how many followers you have, whatever it is, it's about just those relationships and connections in your life.
That's amazing. Yes. And practicing gratitude is a form of self-care,
Yes,
you guys.
it is.
I know, because I do it myself, and it works. It really does. It changes your perception. It makes your outlook better, doing all those things. So thank you so much, Daniela. You have been awesome.
Thank you, Hope. I look forward to continuing to chat and collaborate in the future for sure.
Of course, you guys can check out Daniela here. I've got her website at the bottom. You can follow her on Instagram. And if you have questions, or if you want to work with her, reach out. She is definitely going to respond to you. Self-care is her jam. So reach out for questions. And you guys, we will see you on the next one.